At $200, a Super Nintendo setup costs twice as much as the old system. For the money, the company promises better pictures, sound, and adventure. Now you're playing with power, superpower. You're the king, I tell you! The king!
Only for Super NES.
Only on Super NES.
You're listening to the SNES podcast with your host, Soulblazer.
Hello, everybody. This is the Super NES podcast, episode number 245, getting toward the end of the year here, and special episode 250. Which Joe and I, by the way, we're just talking about like off mic a moment ago, and we do have something special for you guys, but we'll save that for later on. Anyway, getting near toward the end of 2024 because we know how busy things are going to be. Joe and I went with some easy games to cover for the rest of the year, since we have done some pretty heavy hitters as of late. So anyway, glad to have you here, Joe, as always.
Of course, I'm always glad to be here.
I believe this was my pick, but I think this was a game that you would have picked eventually too. Anyway, because you have some nostalgia with another version of this game.
Yes.
Which we'll talk about here later on. We're covering the gambling casino game Vegas Stakes for Super NES in this episode, which also was available on the Game Boy, which is the version that Joe has experience with. I'm trying to remember. You did say that you had a Game Boy as a kid, though, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. A lot of the great Super Nintendo games that came out, I had the really bad Game Boy port. So, Street Fighter, Killer Instinct, Donkey Kong Land was definitely one of the higher points there.
The Donkey Kong Lands were very good games. Are very good games because Rare knew what they were doing, and yes, they are watered down, but they're still very good for the Game Boy system, like all things considered. So,
and then I had this game because my mom loves gambling games. So when I first thought about this, I was like, oh, I had this for the Sega Genesis because my mom loved gambling games. And then I realized that was Caesar's Palace.
Which also came out Super NES too, I think.
Oh,
right?
Did it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think that also came out with Super NES. You want to look it up real quick here, like I'm saying. So this is your first time playing the Super NES version, then, I guess, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised that since you had a Genesis, that you didn't also have the Game Gear.
No, because Game Gear was more expensive because of the color screen. And I had a buddy that actually, my best friend Corey, that I've talked about before, he had a Game Gear when we were growing up. So it would be like, he'd let me borrow his Game Gear and I'd get to play like Beavis and Butthead, Sonic. Like they had like the Sonic wannabe. It wasn't like Sonic 1 for 1, but it was something close to it. It's like the Master System version almost. And then there was another game he had on there that I loved playing. Oh, the original Mortal Kombat. Yeah, that was a much better because oh my god, the Game Boy versions of Mortal Kombat were pretty atrocious. I mean, they were bad on the Game Gear as well, but at least you had color there, and you could put in the blood code. You couldn't do that for the Game Boy, so.
Exactly. No, yeah, the Game Boy definitely had some very good, unique games like of its own too. I mean, like the Final Fantasy adventure games, the Konami stuff, TMNT, Contra, Castlevania, Gradius. Those were all great. Gargoyle's Quest is a great Game Boy game. But yeah, Super Mario Land, of course, the Super Mario Land games.
Oh yeah, I love those games.
Metroid 2, but Kid Icarus later on in his life, like all kinds of great games. But speaking about games, yes, Super Caesar's Palace did come out for the Super NES, Genesis, and Game Gear. So
yes, I did see that it came out for the SNES. So that'll be something down the line for sure.
Yeah, there was also a sequel which was Japan only, apparently. Interesting enough.
Yeah,
so
interesting.
But anyway, yeah. This game that we're covering here in this one, Vegas Stakes, I did not realize was actually developed by HAL Laboratory and published by Nintendo. So this may be one of the most, if not the most, obscure Super NES Nintendo published game for the system. Because, but yeah, going back to what you're saying a moment ago, a bunch of other Joe, gambling games have been a staple of video games since the original Odyssey days. It's like, because I think we talked about this before, a bit before in the past, but when video games were brand new in the 70s, with systems like the Odyssey and the Atari 2600 and whatnot, they tried to make the systems appealing to people by making some games of stuff that people would be familiar with and would be comfortable with. I had to make it more attractive because systems were expensive in those days. It's like the Atari 2600 came out in 1977 was like $300. That's like $700, $800 like today's money. So, so they made a whole bunch of games on topics to help get people comfortable and encourage them to buy the system. Sports games were bread and butter for the staples, like the systems, like football, baseball, golf, that kind of stuff. Conversions, popular board games as well too. Checkers, chess, backgammon, card games like rummy, all that kind of stuff was very popular, like among the old, the old systems. And then for like 3, you had the casino games. So you had to be very careful in those days to specify specifically that these games were not gambling games in the sense you could actually like make money. Like Coleco, the ColecoVision, Mattel, the Intellivision went so far as to always say, as I always use the words like gambling and place and whatnot in quotation marks to underline the fact that But casino games. Or every system in the 70s, 80s had at least like one gambling game on it of some kind. So, nowadays, there are still gambling games made, but and they're obviously still a market for them. But nowadays, with the line between like online gambling kind of blurring and people able to play like actually like real money in many states and countries legally now these days, the market for them is more. I'd say you can still find gambling games for consoles, computers, but I think if you want to play one these days without spending real money, mobile phones are your best bet. That's where you're gonna find like most of that.
Yeah, I was gonna say now as an older adult, I have a slots game that I have that I can just play and have fake money pissed away. So, I get it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's a time killer. And I guess, that's what they've always kind of been, except for, for people who actually have a gambling problem and just can't not gamble. In that case, it's unfortunate that, that situation exists. But, it happens.
Right. So, right. So this game, Vegas Stakes, did get a worldwide. Did get like a worldwide release. Immature handled the publishing of the game in Japan. The game came out in North America first in April 1993, with Europe following in December, and then the Japanese version came out in September of that year. The Game Boy version, which Joe was familiar with, did not come out until 2 years later. It was like December 1995, with the European version like following suit. This is actually a sequel to the NES game Vegas Dream, which was also developed and made by HAL Laboratory, but not published by Nintendo. And so this is just an expanded version of Vegas Dream. I don't remember playing Vegas Dream as a kid because as a kid, gambling games really didn't appeal to me too much. But I took a look at the game briefly. It is very similar to Vegas Stakes. The basic gameplay flow is the same in both games. Obviously, Vegas Stakes has more casinos, has more options. Vegas Dream uses a password feature compared to the save battery that Vegas Stakes has. The endings are different, but yeah. So, but yeah. Basically, this is just really like a more expanded version of like a Vegas Dream. And Vegas Dream did seem like it was one of the better gambling games that came out for the system. During the NES's lifetime. So, the idea behind Vegas Stakes is pretty simple. You're on a trip to Las Vegas. You start off with $1,000. You can play. You can gamble in 5 different casinos. Like all their different themes and players and whatnot. And your goal is to get to the ending of the game by winning a total of like $10 million. So, there actually is more of a plot and character development in this game than I expected. Joe mentioned before we started recording, this game is deeper than it first looks, and I agree. At first blush, this is a gambling game. When you actually get into it, you'll find that the casinos actually have different themes. There's different players you can talk to. Different casinos that have subplots and stories and whatnot. You can have interactions both with your people with you in your party and also also random people. For example, one person may try to pickpocket you to take some money off of you. So, whatnot. And this game also has a 2-player mode where you can play against somebody else also, which feels pretty cool. Gives the game a bit of replay value. And trivia note: this is also one of a handful of Super NES games that support the Super NES mouse.
Yeah.
Which I tried briefly emulated, and it's the controller I think works fine. It's I really didn't see a huge advantage to using a mouse as opposed to a controller in this game because it's a bit sluggish moving controller around the screen to do everything. But it's for the most part, once you pick the game you're playing, you're just gonna be hitting the button 100 times in a row. So
right.
You don't really need to be moving around too much. So it's nice to include mouse support, but it's not very critical. There definitely are some games where you play the past where the mouse is definitely recommended. Yeah. In this game, though, you're perfectly fine. You're perfectly fine doing it either way. Just wherever floats your boat.
And I just want to say thank you for playing with the mouse. So this way, I don't feel so bad about not playing it with the mouse. I wanted to, but then I was like, I just don't feel like going through the extra step to emulate it so that I can use the mouse. And to hear you say that, I was like, perfect, because I really wanted to talk about that, but I had no experience with it.
The emulator I use makes it very easy to add on a different controller. So it's you just have to go to a menu, just pick the option, set it up, boom, you're done. So so it's not really too much of a hassle. But anyway, so before we start talking about your experiences, Joe, let me also just say real quick here, just so you've kind of a frame reference to go of. The main difference, so the Game Boy version of this game, which you're familiar with, is watered down a little bit. Yeah. For example, that version of the game only has 4 casinos compared to the 5.
Correct.
Compared to the 5 that this one has. However, for the most part, from what I saw, the Game Boy version is pretty robust. As far as the port goes. So I'm curious to hear, Yes, I'm curious to hear your experience with playing the Super NES version of this game versus your earlier experience like the Game Boy version.
Yeah, so I'll get this out of the way now. So the Game Boy, the only big differences is obviously you're only playing against one AI player at any time, and the Super NES version you can play up to 4. On poker. Unfortunately, why they don't let you play multiplayer in roulette or craps, I don't know, but whatever. Poker's the one game you can actually see that you're playing with other people. Obviously, in the Game Boy version, the different screen size makes it so that they had to compromise on the table size and what you can see and how it's laid out. But you only have one other character with you, which is a female, where in the Super Nintendo version, you have 4 friends with you: Cliff, Maria, Isabel, and Richard. And unlike the SNES game, well, apparently I'm going to say, because I didn't notice it myself, but apparently, depending on which friend you go gambling with, affects things that go on.
It does, yeah. There's a random chance.
So I didn't. Yeah. I personally didn't encounter anything like that where I noticed like it made a big difference, but that's just me. Anyway, so in the Game Boy version, you only have that one character, so technically, like, nothing's going to change as far as encounters and whatnot. I felt, and I could be wrong, but I felt the Game Boy version had more random encounters and a lot more proposals as far as, like, buying things and, people coming up to you offering advice what you should bet on. So a lot more chances to get pickpocketed. And as you mentioned, there's one less casino, but the plus side is the ultimate casino, the $100,000 plus casino, is not locked like it is on the Super Nintendo version.
Okay, yeah.
But, when you only start off with $1,000, what's that really matter? You can't go there and gamble yet anyways. So, yeah. Playing the Super Nintendo version, as we discussed, this game was deeper than I thought. I was not expecting one. Like I said, the game implies that whatever friend you bring with you is going to kind of affect your game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like I said, I didn't really notice that.
The main difference just appears to be like dialogue conversations you have during the course of the game. The actual outcome doesn't change at all. It's like just flavor text. So it does help to give replay value a little bit to the game at least. So I'll give it credit for that at least. But you're right in saying that's not the. But you're right in saying that's not like very super deep. It's just kind of more like because it makes sense. People usually gamble with people in Vegas. It makes sense for you not to be alone.
Right.
It's interesting, but it's interesting in the game for sure, but it's not critical.
And I will say the random encounters. So a lot of gambling games in general, I won't call them casino games. I'm just going to say gambling games in general are very sterile, as in like they are exactly what you would expect. It is the game that you are playing and that's it, and you bet your money, you win money, you lose money. There's nothing more to it. It is just that game or set of games. Here you have those random chance encounters, and it really does add something to the mundane, because going through and just, playing poker, it's playing poker. Like, you can only have so much fun playing video poker by yourself, even with the AI characters. But the chance opportunity of someone coming up to you, this is one of the best ones that I had. Guy walked up to me at the poker table and was like, "Want to buy a watch for $200? And I was just like, in my zone playing poker. So I was just like, yeah, whatever. I'll buy the watch for $200. Whatever. He probably stole it off someone. He just wants to make a quick buck. So anyways, I bought the watch for $200. And then like a little bit of time passed and some guy comes over and he's like, "I want to buy your watch for $1,000. And I'm like, okay. So like I just made $800 doing nothing, while I was playing poker. So like, that's pretty cool. On the other hand, playing poker and a girl walks up and like is like, "Oh, can I join you? I've been losing, blah, blah, blah." And like, she just wants to kind of be around you because you're, doing good. And then, a little bit later, it's like, oh, she brushes up against you and you lose $700. And it's like, oh, okay, sure, whatever. But then sometimes like they offer you like lottery tickets, and I always took a chance with the lottery ticket because of the fact that you're going to lose your initial investment either way, but there's a 50% chance you're going to make money. Almost every single time I bought the lottery ticket, I would make money. So I was just like, yeah, lottery ticket, I'm going to do that every single time. Biggest problem for me is that although these events are mostly randomly selected. Their positive and negative outcomes are all random. It is a gambling game after all, so go figure. They are very repetitive, which is unfortunate. They repeat way too much. I think in my one play, I was playing poker for like 45 minutes. I got really lost in poker. But in that time frame, I had like 3 different people come up and like offer me watches for X amount of money. And I had like 2 ladies come up trying to, sneak up on me and steal my money eventually. So that was kind of a bummer. But speaking of repeating, we have 5 games to work with. Blackjack, slots, roulette, craps, and poker. And there's, 4 casinos. Your 5th casino opens up once you hit $100,000. The only thing that changes is the theme. Games are all the same. Poker is poker. Craps is craps. Roulette is roulette. It is what it is. I do like the different themes for the different casinos, so that was a big plus. I also loved that if you get the 100,000 and you unlock the final casino, you have to stay at 100,000. If you dip below that, they will kick you out, which I thought was great. Other than that, I think overall the game represents what it is presenting very well. And it even invokes that atmosphere. If you've ever been to a casino, you know what I'm talking about. Like, you could almost smell the cigarette smoke in the air while you're playing this game, because you can feel that social interaction, even though it's not quite there. It's not quite that realistic. But yeah, I don't know, I got excited every time I saw the roulette wheel spin. Like, that was some great Mode 7 stuff there. It's not like, oh my god, it's so detailed or whatever, but it's like, they didn't have to do that. They could have just animated some wheel spinning like they did for like Wheel of Fortune or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't have to do an entire Mode 7 build for the roulette wheel. So, I praise things like that. Sound design is definitely an interesting one on this one. So the car scene at the beginning looks like it's just doing donuts, the way it's animated, and on top of that, it's just this eerie engine sound, just the entire time. But yeah, I mean, the music that's in here is serviceable. Sound effects are serviceable. There's nothing here that I could... It's mundane and very mediocre, but at the same time, the gameplay itself is a little bit deeper than that. And I commend the game for sure. This surprised me. I really expected to plug in this game and literally just play a couple casino games, and that was that. Eventually we'll talk about Caesar's Palace, but Caesar's Palace does sort of the same thing. But
yeah, it does.
You can walk around, they actually animated a character that you could walk around to go to the different machines. So I would have appreciated something like that here, but again, that's not, neither here nor there, since we're not talking about that game. But yeah, overall, Vegas Stakes, I say, if you like gambling games, check it out. If not, it is what it is. It's a gambling game.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that was a pretty good summary. Let me add on to that some. So, the 5 games here are the pretty basic staples. I feel like every simple. I feel like every gambling game I played has had this game. It has had the one or more of these games present. This obviously is an older game. I much prefer to play Texas Hold'em poker as opposed to regular poker, but Texas Hold'em really wasn't popular back in the 90s. So, and for that reason alone, I think poker is the weakest game here. It's perfectly suitable. If you don't have to play the games, you do. they are pretty simple to pick up and learn. I think most people know how to play these games at least, but it's like poker is probably the most complicated of the games. But in poker, you're just like you quickly learn which card you quickly learn which card combinations that you want to have for points or whatnot. So
yeah, and that's one thing I forgot to mention as well is like if you hit the select button, it explains the rules of the game, and they're pretty simply laid out to where you can understand them. One of the reasons why I wanted to talk about the Game Boy version of the game was because obviously that's the version I had, but also that's the version that taught me how to gamble, because that was like my first real gambling experience outside of Wall Street Kid for the NES, because
I actually like that game a lot. Yeah.
I mean, that's a whole conversation on its own. But who thought like a 9-year-old would want Wall Street Kid? But anyways, So it definitely taught me a few things. Going forward in life for sure, as far as gambling goes.
Right. Yeah, because these are the most basic games. Because if you go to casino these days, like I have many times, chances are these five games are going to be about 90% of the game is present there at the casino. The bigger casinos will have more games. Like Baccarat, for example, may be present like at some casinos. Some casinos have like horse racing available. Either like in video form or actually real life races. Yep. A lot of casinos nowadays, now that sports gambling has become legal in a bunch of states, a lot of casinos these days will also do like live sports betting on site as well too these days. Yep. So, so like the bread and butter staple games are going to be these 5 games. So, blackjack is very simple to play. The rules on that are so simple, 4-year-old get it. Craps is a bit more complicated because that's just a dice game, and that's probably it may be weird for me to say this, but I think craps is probably the most chance-based game present.
Yes.
This game pack because dice is just so random, but roulette is just basically you drop a ball in, spin. That's very random too, but at least with roulette, you hedge your bets by saying, okay, I'll take all reds, I'll take all blacks, right, whatever. So not a big payoff, but a payoff if you do that. But your chances of winning, your chances of winning do increase.
Yeah. I was going to say roulette is definitely one of those games where it's higher the risk, bigger the reward. Exactly. That game definitely epitomizes that.
Slot machines, I actually felt was kind of like the weakest in this game, only because I think nowadays there's so many other good slot machine games. Yeah. And there's and nowadays you go to a casino these days. I'm not sure that's time you've been. Yeah. So I'm not sure. Yeah. So Joe lives in Rhode Island. I'm not really sure. Last time, the big casinos near him. I used to live in Rhode Island too. The big casinos near him are like Foxwoods and or Lincoln Park.
But yeah, I actually normally
when you go to a casino nowadays, the slot machines are crazy as far as options, options and complexity, and just so. And I think slot machines here, it's not the game's fault. Slot machines were simpler back in the 90s, right. But still, these slot machines are kind of just boring compared to what you have nowadays.
Yeah. So Norman actually went to Foxwoods last Sunday. And that was the first time I've been there in 11 years, something like that.
That long?
Yeah, wow, okay. It's been that long since I worked at the bar. It's amazing when I think about it. But so we went there and that place has completely changed. But staying on topic, they have this Jumanji game that is 4D. So it's 3D display. It actually blows air at you. The chair vibrates and everything. I could not believe it. But, I mean, it's one of those things. It's the innovation of the slot machine. How do you get someone to stay there longer to play their money? Well, now you're practically watching a movie while you're playing your slot machine. So,
I've seen similar movie-themed games before in the past. Not that complex. But I've seen Wizard of Oz. I've seen Wonka The Willy Wonka the Chocolate Factory I've also seen, where it's like playing clips of the movie as you're doing the game. Yeah, you're right. So I still can't get I still can't get over the fact seeing all this the Konami slot machines either, because it's like this is their this is their bread and butter now.
Yep.
So but that's but it's like, I mean, they're good games, but it's like really, this is what you're doing these days.
Yep.
But but anyway, so the slot machines here are fine. The four regular casinos, as we mentioned briefly, do all have different themes. Hideaway is your typical Vegas style casino, just a casino that's it's bright, it's glitzy, it's flashy, that kind of stuff. Golden Paradise has more of a kind of old-fashioned upscale feel, if that makes sense. Like, that's the kind of casino you'd see, like Atlantic City or Vegas back in the 50s.
Yeah. I was going to say, it reminds me of classic Vegas for sure.
Yeah. Buffalo Head is like a Wild West themed theme casino. It's pretty good. My favorite one though was the 2020, which has kind of like cyberpunk / Blade Runner kind of feel to it.
Yeah, that casino was pretty cool.
And then finally, Laurel Palace, that we mentioned, is the bonus one you can unlock once you get $100,000. Nothing special about that one. That's just supposed to reflect the more upscale, private, like celebs only casinos that operate like in those cities.
Yep.
So, so that's all fun. So if your luck is good, there are playthroughs online in this game where somebody able to go through the game and beat it in like an hour and a half to 2 hours. So if your luck's good, you definitely can do it that fast. You might even be able to do it faster, as a matter of fact. I didn't look up speedrun for this game, but I think depending upon if you cheat and abuse the game, I definitely can see it getting under an hour. But if your luck's good, an hour and a half, 2 hours is very reasonable for getting through this game.
Yeah.
If your luck's not good, then you may have a longer game. But anyway, I think that at least as thin as it is, at least the story option of picking picking your friend to go gambling with does add a little bit of replay value to the game. But the real replay value would be like playing multiplayer mode against somebody else, because anytime you play a game against somebody else, another human, it's better. I was very surprised by the graphics and music in this game. You definitely can tell this is like a HAL game. The graphics in this game are extremely good. They use digitized graphics, digitized pictures for most of the game. But the casinos and the view of the strip and the people gambling, the tables, whatnot. Probably one of the most heaviest uses of digitized pictures I've seen in a Super NES game, actually, now that I think about it.
Yeah.
There definitely are a lot of it in there. The actual casino graphics themselves are pretty good. The cards are a bit small, but they are readable. I mean, it definitely helps. It definitely helps playing this today in 2024 on a big screen television set.
Yeah.
But even back in the 90s, I think it was still readable enough to at least enough the numbers. The symbols at least were clear enough for you to see this is a king. This is a four spades. Whatever. So. The information is presented to you in a very simple one screen format where you see everything at a glance. Has a very definitely has a very authentic Vegas look and style to them. So. The fonts themselves are all readable, and the casino name and money and bet and whose turn is whatnot is all fine. The musical soundtrack of this game, I think is actually very, very good. I was pleasantly surprised by how good it is. Each casino has its own theme, and the themes fit the casinos very perfectly. I thought it's very good, well-sounded, well-themed music for whatever casino you're working on, the time period. So I mean, it's not like great OST listening all the time quality.
Right.
But it does the job done for like, a very good casino themed soundtrack.
Yeah, like I said, I felt it was serviceable.
So, and then finally, the ending is also kind of nice to have. There's there's a very like fantasy aspect to the ending. I ending this game well, sure, because toward the end of the game, you get to tell the game what you do with your winnings. And if you actually do win the game by getting $100 million, you see the ending shows a couple, presumably you and your friend, driving up to drive a casino that has your name on it.
Right.
And I think the game almost tells you whatever you typed in came true. So it's a very fantasy wish fulfillment fun ending end of the game for sure. Not great, but for a gambling game, it's a pretty good ending, I think, all things considered. At least the game has an ending. There's some gambling games that don't have endings.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that the game actually has one that you can shoot for it is very nice.
Yeah, for sure. The Game Boy version, I don't remember having an ending at all. So I'm sure that might not be the case, but I don't remember it having an ending, and I most certainly wasn't able to play through and get to the ending this time around.
Right. It doesn't look like the Game Boy version had an ending because it's probably because size size constraints.
Right.
But
right.
So, there's really not too much. There's really not too much negative I can say about this game. Joe and I already commented upon the points of this game that they felt kind of were weak. Your replay value of this game is limited. Whether or not you enjoy this game depends upon how much you like gambling games to begin with. Poker and slot machines are fair. They could, definitely by today's standards are definitely on the weak side. The encounters can be very repetitive. You get boring after a while. Beyond that, there's really not too much negative to complain about. I mean, because it's this kind of game where it's it's a gambling game. If you like gambling games, you'll enjoy this.
Exactly.
But I think it holds up pretty well today for the most part. It's like I said, there are weaker parts of this game, but if you still want a more older style gambling game, I think this still holds up pretty well today.
Yeah, absolutely.
So reviews of this game when it came out, are pretty positive. Overall. Just give a few scores. All Game gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Computer Video Games gave it 71 out of 100. EGM gave it 7.6 out of 10. Famitsu, the big Japanese magazine, gave it 27 out of 40. IGN gave it. That's the Game Boy version. Nintendo Power gave it 7.2 out of 10. So moderate scores. Pretty good scores. What you expect to see for a gambling game.
Yeah.
So, IGN gave the Game Boy version a 7 out of 10, and Nintendo Power gave it 6.3 out of 10. So, a little bit weaker, but still a pretty good game. I think all in all. The main thing the reviewers said is that as far as negatives is that they praised, and we've said this before. The game, some gambling games are better at being more realistic than others. I thought this game for the 90s was very realistic. The gambling games felt real. They felt they were operating by the laws. I felt like I actually could walk into Vegas or Atlantic City and play that exact same game at a table.
Yeah.
The rules and the AI. Of course, gambling favors the house. But as far as AI rolling numbers or whatever, I thought the game was pretty fair as far as the actual results went. Obviously I did run into losing streaks, but when that happened, I would just reset the game to try it again, because resetting the game does seem like it does seem like it clears up the values and I don't know how much it helped, but my luck definitely did change for the better after I did that.
Yeah.
Usually. So as far as as far as like the randomness factor went, I think I think this game is more fair to you than in real life because, yeah, in real life you can't hit it, you can't win it big on a slot machine, but you're more likely to get a bigger winning faster in this game than you are in real life for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
So the main complaints reviewers had back in the day was that the lack of variety in the games, which is like fair, but again, the Super NES, there's only so much space available in the cart, and gameplay becoming dull after the first half an hour, which I guess I could see.
Yeah.
Like I said before, it depends upon how much you enjoy gambling games, because as far as the actual lights and sound and presentation and everything, this game definitely delivers. You definitely delivers it to you like in spades. So they did mention that the Game Boy version, like I said, was also got pretty good marks. Just being a slightly watered down version, the Super NES version. But I guess the Game Boy version they commented had different music. And so the Game Boy version, the Game Boy version music they described as being cheesy.
And that's quite possible. There was a lot of times where my Game Boy was played with no volume at all because
makes sense. Yeah,
I used to have the in the ear earbuds. The wired ones, obviously, because we didn't have wireless back then, and they would bother my ears. So most of the time, I wouldn't use earphones. Therefore, I could only play it in silence. So yeah,
you could plug in your own pair of headphones.
I could, but like I said, I only had like the earbud ones. I didn't have the ones that go over your ear or anything like that.
Oh, so, you didn't have a Walkman or
correct,
like Walkman or
correct.
anything?
So like those would irritate my ear. So I sometimes would just say, you know what, I don't feel like dealing with that pain.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So obviously, as you might expect, your expected reviews for this title have been more mixed in the years since then. But that's not to be. Yeah, but I expect to see that because, like I said, it is a gambling game. Things have changed in gambling between now and then. Like there are other better gambling games available in the market these days. The fact that like more mixed reviews these days does not surprise me like one bit.
Right.
I also wanted to mention this game did get re-released back in the days of the Virtual Console on the Wii and Wii U, but it's not available. But obviously that's been shut down now. And this game as of now is not available. It's not available on the Switch. That's not to say the game couldn't show up eventually because they have they have ported over a bunch of Hal's other games. So, they might decide to bring the game over. I mean, like, I don't understand Nintendo's logic sometimes in deciding which games to bring over and what not. Like, last month, they released, like, 5 NES games, and five NES games, and 2 of those games were 2 of the worst games ever came out with the system, period. With Donkey Kong Junior Math and Urban Championship. And I'm going like, really?
Yeah.
You guys picking those games to bring over? So I don't understand I do not understand the logic in deciding which game to bring over. But I'm just saying this game could eventually come over the system. So which I think I think this game would do okay if it was made available in Super NES emulation on the Switch. But
yeah, I mean it's one of those games that it's a good time killer for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So, but anyway. I think anyway, that's pretty much Vegas Stakes for you. The game. A trivia note: the game was renamed in Japan as Las Vegas Dream. I guess they probably were afraid to call anything Las Vegas in the States because copyright reasons. Yeah. I think you have to. I think you actually have to have a trademark or a license to use Las Vegas in the name of a product. Where in Japan, those laws are, especially in the 90s, those laws those laws didn't apply. So I'm sure they probably would have wanted to call it Las Vegas Dream here in the States too. They've got away with it because I think that name fits better, I think, than Vegas Stakes. But Vegas Stakes works. Tells you the cover tells you right off the bat. It shows Vegas Stakes. It shows a pair of dice and some cards. You know right away there's a gambling game, so there's not a kind of problem that a problem as far as the title goes. So one other note, trivia note. Super NES and Game Boy version did have different composers, as I mentioned. The composer for the Game Boy version of the game was actually somebody who did quite a lot of work. Her name was Manami Matsubei, and she mostly worked for Capcom during her career and did music for games like Dynasty Warriors, Mercs, Magic Sword, and the original Mega Man. So to have somebody that famous doing you're scoring your music for a gambling game is pretty good. Yeah. So that's why I said that. But that's the Game Boy version of the game only. So, she also worked the music for UN Squad, which has a great soundtrack.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, I think that's pretty much about everything we can say here about this game.
Not so fast, Greg. You forgot to include the eBay pricing. Hi, everybody. This is Mike, the editor. Just going to throw this in here for Greg upon his request. On eBay, there are 212 copies of the game listed. 48 copies have sold. If you're looking for the cart only, it ranges from about $5.50 to $15. If you want it complete in box, it's $20 to $65. And sealed, it goes anywhere from $32 to $183. And I guess if you're looking for multiple copies of the game untouched by human hands, apparently there was a box of unopened games that went for $288. I wonder how many copies that was, but I can't imagine anybody would want that. But I guess somebody bought it, so there you go.
Do you have any final thoughts that you want to mention, Joe?
No, like I said, if you like the gambling games, this is definitely one to play.
Okay. Anyway, so as always, we appreciate you giving us a few minutes of your day. We will be back to you again in 2 weeks with another light and easy game, as we mentioned previously. I figured I'd better throw Joe a bone because we had been covering some probably games he wouldn't have picked otherwise recently. So we're covering a wrestling game. Like our next episode, one of the last North American released wrestling games for the system. If you want to go Japan, there are more wrestling games to cover for sure. Yeah. But as far as North America goes, this is one of the last ones left we haven't covered. So we're going to be covering a game. A game called Hammerlock Wrestling, which I have no idea anything about.
Neither do I.
You probably heard the name. That's it. Huh?
Yeah, that's it.
That's I don't even know who made this game. But while I'm in here, let me look it up real quick. This was made by Jalco. Okay, it's Jalco.
Yeah.
So.
That's an interesting screenshot. So you wrestle in the ring, and they show close-ups on the bottom.
The close-ups,
almost cinematic. Moves, yeah, so right. This is going to be interesting for sure.
But it actually looks like it has some fighting elements to it as well too. Besides just pure wrestling.
Right.
That reminds me of WWF, on the arcade game.
Yes.
For sure. So, but okay. Anyway, that'll be next time. So, thanks again as always listening to the podcast. You can leave us a comment on Facebook, to in our groups there. You also send me an email to the SNESpodcast.com. Joe, where can they reach you at?
You can find me on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at JOESUX30. I also do the Radical Retro Roundup, not a family-friendly podcast. We recently did an episode on Ninja Shadow of Darkness, and also realized that it was 2 years since I rebooted that show. So that was pretty cool. Couldn't believe it's been 2 years. I have a very public Facebook. You can find me. Again, not family friendly. Just giving you a heads up.
Right. All right. So, that'll wrap up this episode. Thank you again, everybody, for listening. As always, stay safe, be well, and we'll catch you again next time. Later, all.
Bye.
Nintendo controls 80% of the video market. But no matter how you play the game, or which game you play, things definitely have come a long way since Pac-Man. Now, Now you're playing with power.
Steampunk.